Ah, the spotlight's flickering. It must be time for another tale to tell. What if I tell you that ancestors you've never questioned weren't quite human? Welcome to Twisted Tales Theatre. I'm Raven, your ever faithful, ever curious host, here to guide you through another fascinating descent into mystery, madness, and maybe a little truth. So sit back, adjust your signal, and remember, no one is leaving this theatre. Not really. Tonight's tale isn't just about a lost civilization. It's about discovering that everything you thought you knew about human origins might be terrifyingly wrong. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, where the waters grow cold and the light dies, lies evidence of something that challenges every textbook, every archaeological finding, every comfortable assumption about where we truly came from. The lost continent of Mu, the mother civilization that birthed humanity itself. And tonight, we're diving deep into those dark waters to uncover truths that some would prefer to remain buried beneath 50 million square miles of ocean. Our story begins in the 19th century, when a strange idea began making rounds in academic circles. This wasn't another tale of Atlantis or the familiar glories of ancient Egypt. No, my dear listeners, this was something far more unsettling. The claim that there existed a continent that came before all known civilizations, a lost world called Mu. Augustus Plongeon, a 19th century archaeologist with an obsession for Mayan ruins, spent his career arguing that the Yucatan civilization predated Egypt itself. But even those who knew Plongeon weren't prepared for what he claimed next. Out of the blue, this respected scholar announced that a continent called Mu had once existed, and that ancient Egypt, all of ancient civilization, in fact, had stemmed from it. According to Plongeon, the Mayan texts he studied spoke of a great civilization that preceded all known history, a civilization that had been swallowed by the sea, leaving only refugees who fled to establish what we now know as the ancient world. The Maya weren't self-made, he insisted. They were descendants of survivors from Mu. But here's where our tale grows deliciously frustrating, as the best mysteries do. Plongeon had no substantial proof. He couldn't say where this civilization had existed or what had happened to them. Without evidence, the whispers of Mu were swept under the academic carpet like an embarrassing relative at a dinner party. That is, until James Churchward arrived to change everything. If this tale already has your curiosity piqued, press that like button. The picture box remembers, and we're just getting started down this rabbit hole. In 1926, British writer James Churchward published what he claimed was the holy grail of ancient civilizations, a three-part book series titled The Lost Continent Mu, The Children of Mu, and the Sacred Symbols of Mu. But Churchward didn't just think Mu existed, he claimed to have proof. 50 years before his books hit the shelves, Churchward had been a soldier stationed in India. During his service, he befriended a high-ranking temple priest who showed him something that would change the course of his life forever. Ancient stone tablets covered in a language so complex, so alien, that only 3 people in all of India could decipher it, the Nagamaya language. Picture this scene, my dear listeners. A young British officer, far from home, staring at sunborn tablets that looked like stone but were built with clay. The priest offers a deal that would doom Churchward to a lifetime of obsession. Teach me to restore these tablets, and I'll teach you the dead language written upon them. What Churchward discovered when he finally decoded those tablets would challenge everything historians believed about human civilization. The tablets, he claimed, originated from the place where man first appeared. But that revelation was merely the appetizer to a feast of impossibilities. According to Churchward's translation of the Nagamaya tablets, Mu was a continent that flourished between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago. But this wasn't just any ancient civilization. Mu was home to over 64 million inhabitants, a population that would be impressive even by today's standards, living in 7 major cities with colonies spanning other continents. The people of Mu, called the Nokal, were described as superior in many respects to our own civilization. They were divided into 10 tribes, but united under a single government and religion. Their continent stretched across the Pacific Ocean from the Marianas to Easter Island, and from Hawaii to Mangaia, larger than South America itself. Churchward painted a picture of paradise: vast rivers, massive hills, gorgeous plains teeming with natural life. A civilization so advanced it makes our modern world look like children playing with blocks. But here's where our story takes its first turn, toward the genuinely disturbing. What happened to 64 million people living in a highly advanced civilization? Where did they all go? Churchward's answer was as staggering as it was terrifying. They disappeared. 12,000 years ago, Mu was completely obliterated in almost a single night. Imagine, if you will, the horror of that final evening on Mu. According to Churchward, the continent faced a sudden series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The very ground beneath 64 million feet began to crack and heave. In his words, the broken land fell into that great abyss of fire. In a single night, the great mother civilization that had supposedly birthed ancient Egypt and all known civilizations simply vanished, covered by 50 million square miles of water, as if it had never existed at all. Now, my cynical listeners might be thinking, Raven, this sounds like the fever dream of a man who spent too long in the Indian sun, and you wouldn't be entirely wrong to think so. After all, Churchward was the only person who claimed to have seen these miraculous tablets. But here's where our story gets genuinely interesting. He wasn't the only one making such claims. Subscribe to hear what evidence emerged next. You won't want to miss the archaeological discoveries that made even skeptics pause. Enter William Niven, born in 1850 with a talent for discovering hidden treasures. In 1921, Niven unearthed the first of over 100 tablets while digging in San Miguel Amantla, Mexico. These tablets bore texts in languages too complex for most scholars to understand, but James Churchward could read them. Churchward claimed the language resembled the Nagamaya script he'd learned from his priest friend in India. According to him, these Mexican tablets were also written by descendants of the Mu civilization. The implications were staggering. If true, it meant survivors of Mu had scattered across the globe, carrying their knowledge to multiple continents. But stone tablets weren't the only evidence Churchward presented. Oh no, my dear listeners, that was merely the tip of a very large, very disturbing iceberg. Have you ever wondered why there are structures beneath the Pacific Ocean too precisely crafted to be attributed to nature? Churchward did. He claimed that the area once occupied by Mu contained monuments that proved the civilization's existence. It made perfect sense, didn't it? If Mu was as advanced as claimed, its people would have left behind traces of their knowledge, and according to Churchward, they had in the form of megalithic structures that defied explanation. The first piece of evidence, the Moai statues of Easter Island. These aren't your garden variety ancient sculptures, my dear listeners. The Moai are gigantic stone figures built by the Rapa Nui people between 1250 and 1500 AD. They feature absurdly oversized heads that comprise 3/4 of each statue, and they have no legs. The tallest, called Perot, stands 10 meters high and weighs approximately 82 tons. When asked about their inspiration for these monuments, the Rapa Nui people revealed they were created to honor their ancestors. But here's the delicious question that keeps archaeologists awake at night. Who exactly were their ancestors, and where did they come from? The geographical location of Easter Island correlates perfectly with Churchward's description of Mu's boundaries. Could the Rapa Nui people be descendants of the lost continent? Think about it. How else could an ancient civilization conceive of building such towering statues without being taught by an even older, more advanced society? The primary material used, volcanic tuff, a soft rock formed from compressed volcanic ash, came from a crater on the island called Rano. But here's where things get genuinely eerie, my attentive audience. Historians noted that it would have been humanly impossible for the Rapa Nui people to move these massive statues to their current locations using primitive technology. When asked how the Moai reached their destinations, the island's eldest natives had a response that would make any rational person's blood run cold. The statues walked to their location. Comment below if you think ancient civilizations had access to technology we've lost, because what you're about to hear might change your mind about what's possible. According to oral tradition, the Moai simply walked to their destinations. Now, we all know this isn't feasible by conventional understanding. Researchers Terry Hunt and Carl Leppo suggest the statues were moved upright in a rocking motion using ropes, the closest scientific explanation to the islanders' accounts. Other scholars propose the Rapa Nui used a system of logs to roll the statues, though this would have required vast timber resources. But there's a third explanation, the one Churchward loved most: spiritual power. Some beliefs hold that the Moai contained spiritual forces that enabled them to move themselves. Churchward supported this theory based on his tablet findings, which suggested that while mankind came from Mu, the mother civilization was no ordinary civilization. If they weren't ordinary humans like you, who were they? Before we explore that disturbing possibility, consider another piece of evidence that gives the Mu theory additional credibility: the global pyramid phenomenon. How do we explain structures of such magnificence being built across different parts of the world in remarkably similar patterns? The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt is aligned with extreme mathematical precision. The pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico share similar designs despite being built thousands of years later. The Shanxi pyramids in China are older than the Egyptian pyramids, yet follow the same geometric blueprint. Were these truly built by different civilizations with no connection to each other? If so, how would completely isolated societies construct identical structures using the same principles? One theory suggests that builders from the Mu continent carried this knowledge as they spread across the world, preserving their lost civilizations' secrets in stone. Another, more intriguing possibility is that these pyramids weren't just tombs or temples, but energy hubs built using advanced technology too complex for us to comprehend. Could the pyramids be the last remnants of the lost continent of Mu? And if so, what advanced technology did this ancient civilization possess that we still can't understand? Like this video if you're ready to have your understanding of human origins completely shattered, because we're about to explore whether the Mu people were even human at all. Prepare yourself, dear listeners. You're about to hear some of the most bizarre theories about the Mu continent, stories that will leave you questioning your genes and wondering if you are 100% human after all. As we've established, the Mu continent was supposedly the first great civilization, the source of all human knowledge, technology, and spirituality. This would explain the magnificent structures on Easter Island and the global pyramid phenomena. But the deeper researchers dig, the more disturbing questions emerge. How did an ancient civilization predating Egypt achieve such incredible advancements? How did they develop complex languages, master astronomy, and build structures that modern engineering still finds difficult to explain? Enter the ancient astronaut hypothesis, the theory that extraterrestrials visited Earth thousands of years ago and interacted with early humans, influencing their development. And this isn't mere speculation, my curious listeners. Evidence has been found in ancient texts around the world. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, celestial beings, who descended from heaven to create and guide humanity. The Mayan Popol Vuh elaborates on sky gods who made man from clay. The Hindu Vedas describe Vimanas flying craft piloted by the gods. Stories of extraterrestrial contact abound across cultures that had no contact with each other. Some researchers argue these weren't myths but historical accounts of visitors from other worlds. If they're correct, could Mu have been their first point of contact with humanity? The witnesses of the Nokal tablets consistently describe one thing: the people of Mu were incredibly advanced, with divine rulers possessing knowledge deeper than any primitive civilization should have had. It seems Mu wasn't just home to humans, but something more. A hybrid civilization perhaps. But if this was true, there's a horrifying likelihood that awaits anyone willing to explore this line of thinking. Some theories suggest that if extraterrestrials did visit Mu, they had one specific goal: to intervene with humanity through genetic manipulation. Ancient texts consistently reference divine beings as the source of humanity or as entities that modified early humans. This could have occurred through interbreeding between extraterrestrials and the first civilizations. Modern scientists would call such matters controversial abomination. But what if this coexistence was equally controversial back then? So controversial that the entire continent had to be wiped away in a single night. Share this video if you believe humanity's origins aren't what we've been taught, because the cover-up might be bigger than we imagine. This is where academic chaos truly began. It wasn't the fascinating origin theories of Mu or Churchward's tablet discoveries that caused the biggest stir. Historians tolerated discussions of the Moai statues and pyramid connections, even theories of possible ancient human alien interbreeding. The breaking point came with the claim of Mu's sudden disappearance and the complete lack of geological evidence to support it. Sadly, there is no geological evidence of a sunken continent in the Pacific Ocean. Geologists argue that continents don't simply sink, especially not one housing over 60 million inhabitants with thriving cities. The Pacific Ocean floor has been extensively mapped, revealing no evidence of a massive lost landmass beneath the waves. Plate tectonics, the process by which Earth's crust shifts, makes it impossible for a continent the size of Mu to have suddenly disappeared without a trace. The geological record would show such a catastrophic event, yet no such evidence exists. Then there's the matter of the Knockle tablets themselves. The ancient records Churchward claimed told Mu's story were never seen by anyone besides Churchward himself. He never provided them for secondary analysis, meaning no other researcher could confirm their existence. Without the tablets, the entire story of Mu's civilization rests on unverified claims. Linguists also challenged Churchward's belief that Mu influenced Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. They argued that the languages and architectural principles of these civilizations developed independently, with no solid linguistic or genetic evidence linking them to a shared Pacific origin. But if Mu never existed, why do so many cultures have stories of a lost homeland swallowed by the sea? Is there a thread of truth hidden within a legend? Perhaps there is. Although scientists dismiss Churchward's claims about Mu being a lost continent that founded human civilization, some researchers believe there could be kernels of truth behind the legend. One possibility is that Mu represents a misinterpretation of real historical events. The Indonesian landmass theory suggests that Mu could be the Sundaland region, a vast area of Southeast Asia that partially submerged at the end of the last ice age, approximately 12,000 years ago. This time frame aligns perfectly with Churchward's description. Another potential misinterpretation involves the writings that started it all. Remember Augustus Le Plongeon's Mayan text discoveries? Some researchers believe Le Plongeon simply misinterpreted Mayan texts that referenced an ancient place called Mu, not referring to a lost continent but a different symbolic land entirely. Regarding Mu's extinction, Churchward described volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. What if this legend preserves memories of real catastrophic events, like the sinking of Doggerland in Europe or the flooding of some? These alternative explanations suggest that Mu might represent a collection of different real-world events and myths passed down through generations. Tell us in the comments what you think about the Mu civilization. Do we carry genes from a possible hybrid species? Or is this all elaborate mythology? Was the Mu civilization really the mother civilization of all humanity? Do we bear genes from a possible hybrid civilization created through ancient extraterrestrial intervention? To this day, scientists lack concrete answers. But perhaps that's precisely the point, my dear listeners. Perhaps the most unsettling truth isn't what lies beneath 50 million square miles of Pacific water, but what lies beneath our willingness to accept comfortable lies about our origins. Consider this. Every culture on Earth has flood myths. Every ancient civilization built monuments that still confound modern engineers. Every primitive society somehow possessed astronomical knowledge that rivals our own. Either these are the most remarkable coincidences in human history, or something connects them all, something we've chosen to forget. The absence of geological evidence doesn't necessarily disprove Mu's existence. It might simply prove how thoroughly some secrets can be buried. After all, we've only explored 5% of our oceans. Who knows what lies in the darkness below, waiting for the right moment to surface? And if extraterrestrial intervention did occur in our distant past, would those responsible really leave obvious evidence lying around? Or would they ensure that any traces of their involvement disappeared beneath the waves, leaving only whispers and legends to torment future generations? The blood flowing through your veins carries the genetic memory of thousands of ancestors. But what if some of those ancestors weren't entirely human? What if the divine spark that separates us from other species came from visitors who vanished as mysteriously as they arrived? As our spotlight begins to dim tonight, consider this fascinating possibility. Perhaps the greatest conspiracy isn't that Mu existed and was covered up. Perhaps the greatest conspiracy is that it never needed to be covered up at all. We've done such a thorough job of dismissing our own legends, our own collective memories, that the truth hides in plain sight. Every time you look up at the stars and feel that inexplicable longing, every time you stand before an ancient monument and sense something beyond human capability, every time you dream of civilizations that couldn't possibly have existed, you're remembering the signals are all there, dear listeners, in our myths, our monuments, our very DNA. The question isn't whether Mu existed. The question is whether we're brave enough to acknowledge what we've always known. We are not alone. We have never been alone, and our origins are far stranger than any textbook dares admit. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, remember that beneath miles of dark Pacific water, something might be waiting for us to remember, waiting for us to come home. Until next time, keep questioning what you've been told. Keep searching for the truth they don't want you to find. And remember, in a world of lies, the most radical act is simply remembering. This is Raven, signing off from Twisted Tales Theatre. The signal dies, but the story lives forever.